what kind of skills do you think carried over when you were like getting into real estate, especially when it comes to one relating to people?
I would say recruiting is one of, if not the hardest job in the military. Maybe not physically, but like from a work hour, stress, mental, they're both intense. I don't think there's a job that prepares you more for like what you and I are good at than recruiting. Like if you think about it, dude, like I got a crash course on like speaking in public, and then for 3 years I had to go to high schools and like wander around and like network with the principal, network with the coach, network my way through all the teachers. We'd go and we'd find what we call like a key man. So you go and you try to hunt down like what senior in high school has the most pull, and you'd like go and try to enlist that kid or at least befriend him. You're learning how like everything you think of like with content, networking, negotiation, sales. Like I mean, recruiting is sales, it's networking, and it's communication. That's it.
Welcome back to the Art of Connecting podcast. This is your host, Hayden Fike here, back with another episode. And today I am so excited to have the one and only Dave Pere with us. I DM'd Dave because he said like he put a story out there and was like, anyone who wants to have me on a podcast, here's all the requirements. So I was like, I don't meet almost any of those, but we smoked a cigar together in Costa Rica in a hot tub. Can I have you on my podcast?
Yeah, so far you're the only one this year I think I've broken my rule for, so
I'm honored, and it really just gives me the drive to hit those goals so then I can have cool people like you on all the time.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you. You know, it's funny, I not that you asked, but I didn't have any rules, and I used to just say yes to absolutely everyone. About a year and a half ago, I got just straight burned. It was ironically, it was the exact same day. I had 2 different people I recorded with, and the episodes never released. And when I was like, what happened? They're like, oh, we decided not to continue with the show. And I was like, cool. So in the same day, 2 different podcasts wasted collectively 2.5 hours of my day because I spent the time to record, and neither one will ever see the light of day. So then I was like, all right, 25 episodes minimum. I'm probably about to move it to 50, or I get to be the first one to release. And my thought behind that is like, if I ever became Bigger Pockets, which, you know, I wouldn't, but like if you ever become that big, then, you know, I'm the first episode. So when people go back and start listening, they find,
it's gonna be number one.
So I've had 2 people take me up on, maybe 3 people take me up on being their first slot, which is really funny because a lot of times they've recorded 5 or 10 episodes, and I'm like, either got to wait 6 months or let me take spot number 1. And then there's you.
We're at 37 episodes right now, and I already told you the next 2.
Oh, you're right. I posted 50. So. Yes,
yeah, you did.
I was moving 50. The number up eventually.
Yeah, you got it, man. Well, either way, so let's introduce yourself, Dave Pere. Who are you for the people that somehow don't?
Man, I'm just a normal dude. I joined the military in 2008, and then in 2015, I realized my finances sucked, so I got into real estate. Or I got into real estate and realized my finances suck. I don't really, it wasn't like I was looking to get into investing to fix a situation. It was like someone handed me a book and was like, read this, dumbass. And then I did. And then that was Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And then I was like, oh my goodness, I'm an idiot. I'm wasting so many opportunities. And so I bought a house. Then I was hooked and took off running. And somewhere along there, I decided to start just kind of documenting my journey. I'm sure we'll talk to how that came about on this show. And then that blew up. Like I went from, dude, like my first few blog posts are like how to best search Google, and it's like advanced search tricks. Like they're nothing. It was just me like, oh, I learned this cool thing today, and then it became, you know, I'd post something about the VA loan and people would start asking questions. I get the same question. I'd go and post more about it. And so yeah, the military millionaire community just kind of blew up one day, and now I'm like the guy for military real estate investing, which is cool.
How big is your community now? How many people do you have in like the military millionaire?
Probably
community?
250,000. We've got, let's see, 60, right at 68,000 on Facebook. Probably. I think we're just about to break 68. Like just about 60,000 on Instagram, 100K on TikTok. Well, 99.6K on TikTok. I went from 400 to 99,000 on TikTok in 6 months. 18 months ago, I stopped at 99, and I go 99 to 98 to 99 to 98. Like TikTok does not want me to cross 100,000 followers. But so that's what, 220. And then, I mean, if you figure, I'm sure I've got there's other stuff I'm missing in there, but just those 3 platforms are 220. And then we got the podcast. We got, YouTube's another 40,000. So, all right. So there we go. 260. I don't know. Somewhere in there. We're around $250,000.
Yeah. And so I remember in Costa Rica when, you know, we were sitting at the villa, and it was in the morning, and you had your laptop out, And I was just very curious. I was like, what are you even working on right now? So like, this is a connecting podcast and we'll get into that. But I think that for your example, it's really interesting because you're somebody that I aspire to be like one day, where you have a big community. And so what does work look like? Like, what does a day of work entail?
I mean, Monday looks like meetings. So I've created for myself what I call, I want to say it's the 10x is easier than 2x book that named it. It might have been what was the other one? There were two big business books that went pretty intense last year.
Who not how?
No, that's another good one by them. No, the other one was I'm drawing a blank. Anyway, yeah,
Prioritize
there
your
you go. So
time.
one of those two books talks about a
Pay
maker's schedule and a manager's schedule. And so I realized I've been trying to set up a maker schedule for the longest time. And like the world had kind of convinced me that was the wrong way to do it. And so I stopped. And then I read that and I was like, nah, screw the world. I'm right. This is what I want. Like, this is how I work. And what's really cool, and I'll explain what that is in a second. What's really cool is I went to Alex Hormozzi's, like the 2-day event they host. And I was one of the first, probably like the second or third version of that they did. In fact, I know that just because I paid for the upsell, and now the upsell is like twice what I paid for it. So, but I went, and you get to talk to the team a lot, but I didn't want to harass Alex, so I went and talked to the team a lot. I asked him one question, and but as I was in line to ask him that question, the guy in front of me asked him about his schedule. And dude, if like I'd be lying, he pulled his phone out and showed his calendar, and Alex and I have like the not the exact same, but I mean like the same style of scheduling. So I was like, there we go. If it's good enough for Hormozy, it's good enough for me. And so basically, what that means, a maker schedule is like my schedule is no shit. Like Monday from like 10:15 to 4 every single Monday. It's like call with my video editor, call with my sales team, call with my hotel team, call with my COO, call with my executive coach, call with my team. And then after that, I'll have like 2 hours open for like 15-minute intro calls with whoever. And then I try to not schedule shit Tuesday through Friday. So like Tuesday, like yesterday, I literally had one thing on my calendar. The whole day was open for content. Today, the only thing I have is podcasts. I got 3 of them back to back to back. Tomorrow, podcasts. So like it's content Tuesday, my podcast generally Wednesday, sometimes guest interviews, and then Thursday is guest interviews, and then Friday and Thursday is also like all things working on the community, the war room, whatever. And then Friday is just kind of like tying up loose ends, which honestly right now is I'm launching another podcast, like a local podcast called the Springfield Business Podcast, where I'm just going to interview like local business owners. And so, yeah, dude, it's crazy. Like my like work schedule, when you ask like what I do, like today I sent an email. I went to the gym. I got coffee. I sent an email. I posted a blog. And yeah, I got this podcast, another podcast, another podcast. And then I go hang out with my son for like 7 hours. So yeah, it's not
Heck
too
yeah.
bad. Yesterday was literally like I typed up content and or filmed content from when I got back from the gym until my call. And the call I had was a accountability call within my mastermind that I run. So cool. And then I got on a kayak and went and floated around on a river and tried to find a bridge to jump off suicidally, but because that's what you do in rivers. And yeah, man. So it's cool. I'm starting to finally, like, I've got a team where I can actually focus on the things that I want to focus on, which is content networking, and it's awesome.
So speaking of content and networking, you're going on like a little bit of a podcast crusade, and Bill Allen's doing the exact same thing. And I asked him why he was doing this on his podcast. Why podcasts? Like, why are you so focused and spending 2 days of your week on going on other people's podcasts and
I have
doing
no
your own?
idea. I just saw other people do it, and I was like, that looks cool. No, honestly, it stems from about probably 3 weeks ago. It was a Sunday, and for the first time in a long time, I felt so caught up and no major projects looming that I texted my COO on a Sunday and was like, what should I be doing right now? I was like, I want to work. I was like, I'm in work mode. Like, I want to do things, but I'm staring at my computer, and where I normally have like 4 browsers open with 5 or 10 different windows of like, and they're segmented like, hey, this browser is all things war room, this one's all things content. I was like, I have one browser open and it's basically like my calendar. And I was like, I feel caught up. I don't have projects. Like, I don't have tasks. Everything in the to-do list is done. Like, unless I start a new project today, I don't know what to do. And he was like, good, you can finally start being a fucking CEO. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He's like, outward. It's like growth. Get your ass on fucking
Mm.
podcasts. And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. And so like I'd been so focused on growing the community that I'd slow down on content. And he's right. Like where I need to be focused is growing and expanding. And the best way to do that is to be a guest on shows where you get into their network, their circle, right? So if I go like, so I've got your show now. After that, I've got the Burr podcast with Devin Burr or Mr. Burr on Instagram, and he's got big followers. Probably, I don't necessarily know exactly how big his show is, but it's bigger than mine. So that'll have good reach. And then I've got another podcast where I'm going to be the first episode, and it's for a buddy of mine who does VA loans. And then tomorrow, let's see. Tomorrow I've got. Oh, I don't actually have any shows tomorrow. I just have time slots blocked out. Tomorrow I have. I'm hosting a local meetup, and then I've got a call for my mastermind. But the reason I went on the podcast vendetta essentially is like if I can get into somebody's show, it helps. Like anyone who listens to that show that fits my audience will follow. It's the best way to like
Right.
outreach, I suppose. Without just doing like outright collaborations on social media, but it's a lot easier to pitch. Like if I went to Mr. Burr and I'm like, yo, let's do a collab. Like I'd have to have an idea. We'd have to film stuff. We have to coordinate. We have to whatever. But if I'm like, yo, you need a guest? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, cool. Like he gets something out of it. I get something out of it. Win-win, easy. So I'm trying to get on some bigger ones. I'm so close to like upping to the next level. There's levels to the podcast game, I've realized. And it's like there's like a threshold. And I'm at the threshold where if I can just break into one of those like top 0.5% shows, then I'll be able to make it on all of them and I'll blow up. And I'm like right there. Like I've been on Bigger Pockets 3 times, the main show. I've co-hosted the Money Show 12 times. I've been on Brandon Turner's Better Life. I've done Rich Summers. I'm about to do Mr. Burr. I've done Entrepreneurs on Fire. We don't have it scheduled yet, but I think I'm about to go to Phoenix to do an in-person with Steve Trang and the Disruptors podcast, which will be another big one. But I'm like right there where I'm like, if I can just break that wall, then you get into like the world of like, Grant Cardone, Dan, drawing a blank, Bradley, sorry, Pineda, all these guys. And it's like, well, I've been on Pineda's show, but anyway, so like I'm really trying to get to that point where it's like, all right, if I can get onto just like 1 or 2 of these big shows, and the best way to do that is to hit all the small circuit again. It's a really long answer for your question, but that's kind of the idea.
I'm hanging out with Grant's former securities attorney tonight, and what else? A friend of mine is really close with. What was the other one that you said?
Bradley?
Again, you said, yeah, Bradley. Oh, Shane. Shane So was just on Bradley's podcast, my buddy. So I can hook you up with Shane. He was
I'd
literally
love
just
that.
on there. So
You'll have to ask him if he got in
get you on there.
organically or if he paid to play, because Brad charges 10 grand if he doesn't know you. At least I've heard it's 10. It changes. Some of these shows are wonky like that. Like there's one called, I can't think of the name of the show, but it's with a kid named Sean, I think. Sean Pan, not Sean Pan. I know Sean Pan. Sean something. And it's like a marketing show. The kid's got millions of followers online. It's like 5 grand to be on the show. But then the more you dig, the more you realize like it's all paid. Like all the followers are bought, all the engagements bought.
Right.
It's like that ain't worth it. In fact, I've paid for one show and it wasn't worth it. Brian and I both paid for the exact same show. Both got nothing out of it. I'm not going to name drop the show, but I'm kind of like, yeah, I don't think I'll ever pay to go on a show again.
Yeah, we can have an offline conversation about those because I have some intel for you. But yeah, so you're doing this to grow the company, right?
Just gets out there. Yeah.
Create connections with people, because if someone listens to you for an hour, I know so many people that I've met that I listen to their podcast and I feel like you almost have like a window in, whenever you listen to an episode that they've done. It's just like when I first met Brian, I feel like I'd known him for a year because I'd listened to almost every episode of Action Academy.
Long form content builds trust. Plus, the other benefit to it is if you have a decent editor, like I've been sending like the bigger shows I've been on, I'm like, hey, just go pull like 2 or 3 really solid sound bites out of this. And then it's like a piece of content pops up with me and Brandon Turner at a table, So it's that content generally does better. And it's funny too. Sometimes it's not good. Like I'll post the clips from like Grant Cardone or Robert Kiyosaki when they were on my show. And half the people that comment or engage are just like, fuck those guys. But like they still blow up because everybody knows they know. Yeah.
It's engagement.
So
Awesome. So tell me a little bit. We're going to get into the connecting side of things. Let's start kind of early on. So tell me a little bit. You kind of glaze over your story a little bit of like I was in the military, realized finances weren't where I wanted them to be. What did that look like as far as like you look down at your bank account, you say like, okay, well, I have $20. I want this to be better. What was your first like? What was your first connection that got you? You mentioned someone that gave you a book, but like, what was a connection that got you from like, all right, I'm broke. I don't want to be broke. Like who helped you with
so he tried to get me into Amway, and
ah
that didn't necessarily work. But he gave me the book Rich Dad Poor Dad in an attempt to like talk, because Robert always talks about uh, network marketing or whatever. But instead, I found it. I was like, ooh, real estate, and so I went down that route, and that like totally changed the trajectory of my life. The reason I like intentionally forgot his name is, well, I guess it wasn't necessarily intentional that I forget his name, but I have apparently, which is whatever. But yeah, I found out, like, I came back years later and I was gonna like go hunt him down and be like, dude, thanks for changing my life, and see where he was. And then I found out he's like in jail for being a pedophile. So I'm like, all right, we don't give a
oh
shit about that guy, but he still changed my life. So, so yeah, someone handed me that book and I just ran with it. At the time I was a recruiter for the Marine Corps. So I was working 80 plus hours a week. I was not financially stable. I was getting married and I was like, I want the ability to not have to do this forever. And so many people in the military do 20, get out and go work a government contracting gig, which is fine. They do very well. But I was like, I don't want to go work for, 10 more years to go work for 20 more years to go and finally be like, woo, I'm done. I mean, I still would have been 60 and two pensions. I would have been fine, but like, I want to live life now. And so that was kind
yeah.
of the catalyst. And it's funny, I talk online, I'm like, yeah, 80 hours a week, and everybody calls bullshit. And I'm like, dude, I texted both of my former bosses and I was like, hey, what do you think our average hours were? And they both came back at 80. And I was like, cool, that's actually what I got too. Um, Anyone who doesn't know anything about Marine Corps recruiting would never believe some of the stuff that we have done. But like, dude, those are the worst. I would say consistently, I worked worse hours on recruiting duty for the Marine Corps than I did when I was deployed to Afghanistan. Now, there were definitely times in Afghanistan where we worked worse hours, but like not consistently. So, it was crazy.
I had some chase me down in the parking lot at Chick-fil-A one time when I was working. That came out to me and were like, "Do you want to be a Marine?" I'm like,
Dude,
"No,
Chick-fil-A is like
not really."
Chick-fil-A is prime stomping grounds because most of the people who work there are, like mentally stable, not necessarily hardcore tattooed. They've got a clean record, like they're not druggies. You'd be surprised by the amount of stuff that disqualifies people from military service. And so I fully understand why. I can do you one worse though. We were so far behind once that I had my boss, Master Sergeant. He retired as a Master Guns. Paulie. He was the recruiter instructor, which meant he was the guy who went and trained all the recruiters. Showed up at our office, and we spent the whole day with him. And this dude, like, I don't know if he was on crack or what. He did not sleep. And I kid you not, like, I tell people this, and they're like, "Yeah, whatever." I'm like, "No, man. Like, I would not make this up." Like, on the same night, we were just driving around town trying to find people who were interested in the military. On the same night, he and I stopped at a bus stop and picked up the random young kid who was sitting at the bus stop. And I was like, yo, dog, we're like in dress uniform. We're in our deltas, which is like the khaki shirt with ribbons and the blue pants with the red stripe that everyone knows with the white hat. And it's like 10:30 at night, and there's this freaking 25-year-old kid sitting at a bus stop, and I pull in like a government plated Chevy Malibu, and I'm like, "You want to ride?" And then as soon as he gets in the car, I'm like, "Where are you going?" We start driving there. I'm like, "So, man, you ever thought about the military? Like, you're stuck now, bitch." And then later that night, we went to a Walmart, and it was like 12:30 in the morning. We're like walking through, talking to the bus, like the box, like the stock boys. And I remember distinctly, like, at one point, like, we talked to all of them, and I'm like, when you're done dealing with this bullshit, and you want a real, like, a cool job, hit me up. And in my head now, I'm like, if I was that fucking box boy, I'm like, this dude's in dress shoes at 12:30 in the morning. No, I don't want to be him. That looks like shit. I was a total jerk. Like, I once, like at Walmart, you can ask the bag boys to carry your stuff out to the car, like old ladies or whatever. I would like, if I saw a bag boy who looked like he was fit, I would order like a Coca-Cola and be like, "Can you take it to my car?" And then like as we're walking in the parking lot, I'd be like, "So you ever thought about the military?" Like, it was so dumb. The stuff you do on recruiting is ridiculous. But I was also the rookie recruiter of the year, second up for recruiter of the year that I became a boss. I was the youngest and lowest ranked boss in 13 states, and I won station of the year. So like I smoked everyone on recruiting. There's a fucking trophy in the other room that I stole from when I was the when I came back to Springfield. I went and introduced myself to the old office, and as I was looking around, I was like, "You guys don't have the trophy up from 2016?" They're like, "Oh, it's in the back." And I was like, "Can I have it? It's got my name on it." And they were like, "Yeah, you can have it." So I'm like, took that shit. It's hanging up in my office. It's like this big ass like Stanley Cup looking gold trophy that says we were the last ones to win it, and then I guess they stopped using that award.
So obviously that prepared you in some way, shape, or form for what you're walking
Yeah,
into in real estate. Because like I think about it all the time now, how much the jobs you had before carry over into like your ventures today. And like so much of my success I can contribute directly to working at Chick-fil-A, being a car salesman, being an auto shop guy. Like all of these different jobs taught me things that helped me out in
yeah.
what I'm doing today. So what kind of skills do you think carried over when you were like getting into real estate, especially when it comes to people and relating to people?
I would say recruiting is one of, if not the hardest job in the military. Maybe not physically, but like from a work hours, stress, mental. Like, um, there's like this age old debates between recruiters and drill instructors about which one's harder. But at the end of the day, they're both intense. They're just different reasons that they're both intense. Um, I don't think there's a job that prepares you more for like what you and I are good at than recruiting, because like if you think about it, dude, like I got a crash course on like speaking in public, and then for 3 years I had to go to high schools and like wander around and like network with the principal, network with the coach, network my way through all the teachers. We'd go and we'd find what we call like a key man. So you go and you try to hunt down like what senior in high school has the most pull, and you'd like go and try to enlist that kid or at least befriend him. So like for me in like Hillcrest High School, there was this kid, Jason Hogue. He and I actually still talk. He's out of the Marine Corps now, lives here. We grabbed lunch like 2 months ago, 3 months ago. Like he and I still chat. But I enlisted him. He was the captain of the wrestling team, and the like he was either the captain or like the co-captain of the football team at this high school. And so I would go and I'd be like, "Yo, Jason." We'd be like in the lunchroom, be like, "Who should I talk to?" And he would like yank kids up. And I think I enlisted like 5 kids that year out of that school, and 4 of them were like his friends. And so you'd go and do stuff like
Wow.
that and networking, whatever. But then you have to go and speak to, like, I did award ceremonies in front of like the entire high school and parents, where we'd be handing out awards or go teach in classes. I'd run fitness, and so like you're learning how to speak, you're learning how to be proper, you're learning how, like, everything you think of like with content, networking, negotiation, sales. Like, I mean, recruiting is sales, it's networking, and it's communication. That's it. So like with what we're doing and what you and I are good at, which is connecting, like that just brought it out of me. I was always a good little like networker, but then it was like, now I know how to speak. Now I can be articulate. Now I can turn on and off the swearing on command. Like it was great. Yeah.
That's awesome. So when you were getting started, you mentioned you're doing a meetup tomorrow. How important were meetups? And this is partially like a plug because I run a meetup, but like I am genuinely curious. Like, did meetups have a big impact on your success when you were getting started?
When I was first getting into real estate, there really wasn't much in Springfield, and I didn't attend. I attended one like local RIA meetup, and it was a pitch fest, and I was like, nah, this sucks, and I never went back. But then when I got out to Hawaii and I was stationed there for 3 years, I started my own meetup, and that was super beneficial. And I did it when I got to San Diego, and that was beneficial. And then I just started it again here like 7 months ago, and that's been beneficial. And so all it is you run a meetup, and then slowly what happens is you become like the guy. Like everybody wants to introduce, if they're like, "Oh, I got this friend. I brought this friend to the meetup. Let me introduce him to the guy who runs it." Like they look cool because they know the guy who runs the event. You get to meet everybody,
Yep.
and then it's just goodwill. It's like if you think about the law of reciprocity, it's like I'm hosting this space for people to hang out, connect, whatever. Like you've got an in at that point for like, "Hey, let's connect." Like it's a status thing. It makes it way easier to. So we literally just launched our local event for the sole reason of just further cementing that we are like the guys in Springfield. So it's me and my well, I guess you could say real estate agent. That's how we met. But and he is my agent, but like he's the best investor agent in town. He knows everybody. He owns, I don't know, $10 million worth of storage facilities. And so the two of us pulled together. We're like, we know every player in town. We can make this thing work. Our goal is to push the RIA out of business without selling anything. And
Yep.
we, we're still pretty young at this one, but we've had standing room only at the last 3 events. And yeah, it's been good.
How many people are you having at each meetup?
Depends, between like 40 and 60 probably right now. So, and it'll grow. We haven't brought, this is our first, tomorrow's our first like out of state speaker, which is cool. So we'll see how that does. We brought my buddy Kevin Cho, who is, I guess you could call him like Pace Morby's protege. He's probably one of his best or favorite students. He's like 23, I think, and has 29 houses. Maybe I got those backwards. I think he's 23 and has like 29 houses that he's bought, using creative financing in Phoenix. And so it's gonna be cool. He was talking about coming out to, and he's like, hey, if I come out, we should grab a beer. And I was like, why don't you just come speak at my event and bring all your, local sub 2 people. So we'll see how many, Pace More beers show up.
Whenever people were wearing that hat,
I stole one.
I'm not just, yeah, I don't know. I question things when they're wearing a little sub 2 hat.
Dude,
but
Pace has a
just me.
fucking cult. He has the craziest community. Like he has cracked the code. I mean, he's got like 17,000 people in his community. It's nuts.
Well, the wild thing is sub 2 is nowhere remotely near a great strategy.
Like, I mean, it's got its place. But yeah.
It depends on the situation, but it's not like a thing where like sub 2, it's the last thing I would ever think there would be a community around, because it's like such a obscure, like it's really difficult to explain to people to get them to get on board with it. And it's like,
dude,
but he makes it work,
yeah,
man.
he makes it work. Pace is the man.
For a lot of drinks in Florida one time for me. Went to his party at Bigger Pockets.
Oh, there you go. Cool. Yeah, I love Pace. Oh, that was last year. That was in Orlando.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, we hung out in the hot tub there.
It's a recurring.
Again,
look, man, hot tub and Dave is a recurring. Like, it's only a matter of time before I buy one here. So,
yeah, no, it's crazy that the 2 times we've been together both ended in a hot tub.
Yeah, man, you give me a cigar and a hot tub, and I'm a happy man.
Are you coming to Tulum? Speaking of cigars and hot tubs,
I don't. There's still a chance, but I don't think so, dude. I'm trying to. Dang. This year, I've been trying to slow down, and like my whole thing has basically been that I'm not going to go to an event unless I'm break even or getting paid to attend. So like, I just got invited to go speak at another event into Denver, and I haven't responded yet because he is a friend, so I want to help because it's his first time running this. But I'm probably going to end up telling him, yeah, man, if you can make it free for me to show up, you cover my ticket, my flight, my hotel, I'm there. But otherwise, unfortunately, I can't.
Which is understandable. Like I'm paying for Ben Call to come in and speak at my meetup in October. So
yeah, I always pay transpo and give a free room at my events for speakers. In fact, I just paid. The guy didn't want a speaking fee, which was awesome. He's with BlackRock, and it's going to be sick. But he's coming out to San Diego, and I paid to fly him and his brother-in-law, who I guess is like a wounded Marine Corps vet. So I paid to fly both of them to the event and gave them a room, where they'll be in the same room, but they'll each have their own bed. And was like, cool, man. Like, all you. Yeah, dude, I get so many opportunities to speak now that, like, unless I can just drive there, it's just not worth. It's not that it's not worth it, but it's hard to justify. Like last year, I spent $70,000 on travel to events, and including event tickets. But like, that's a salary. It's a little excessive to be going to help other people's events.
You were also like on a crusade. Like I watched your Instagram, and you were like going from event to event to event, like the whole entire year. Like it was like, and you had that little Jetta, and you were like, all right, just getting in the Jetta. We're driving across the country to go to different events. The last 3 years,
I've averaged 35,000 miles on that car. And last year I hit 26 states. And then I sold it, so not as much now. Now I won't go anywhere in the car unless it's under 10 hours because I'm in a Tesla now, so it's a little bit more of a pain to drive. Well, to drive distance on purpose. But locally it's amazing. I could have just kept the Jetta. But.
Did you want it to have the Tesla so you'd said no more often? Was that like part of the
no? I've always wanted a Tesla Model X, but I'm not going to drop $120,000 on a car unless it's got a Porsche logo.
Bill.
And so my buddy called me. Have I introduced you to Hugh Carnahan yet? If not, I should. Well, you just come hang out in Springfield for a weekend sometime, and I'll introduce you. So he called me, and he was like, "Do you want my X?" And I was like, "Maybe." He's like, $40,000. I was like, "Done." and so he was buying another one, and so we have two of the very rare kind of unicorny Model X's where I have full self driving but no internal camera, so it doesn't track my eyes, so I can actually like I could literally turn on a Disney movie on my phone and just like drive down the highway like this, and it'll just drive the car will
Yeah.
just drive. And so it's super convenient for me because I'm like, now I can type in the gym, rest my hand on the steering wheel, and catch up on emails, and it'll take me to the gym. um, Hugh sold it because he found the only like greater unicorn in the Tesla world. It's the exact same year, but it's either 2 months older or 2 months newer. I can't remember. And so he now has full self driving on his Model X plus free supercharging for life. And so he can drive around the country for free. And I still have to pay for supercharging, but I have the full self driving without the camera that rats you out and kicks you off. Because like right now, like Bill just bought a brand new Model X or Model Y, and he's very unhappy. It has the camera, and he's like, now if I look down at my
Yep.
phone, it kicks me off self drive, and I'm like, well, that's the whole reason I bought the damn thing.
His old
Yeah,
one didn't have it. Yeah, he was like, that's it. My friend Phil just bought a Tesla too, and he was like, I'm not gonna pay for the self driving. So he was on the subscription because he's like, it's just defies the whole point. It's like the whole reason I bought the car was so I could do business while I was
which
on
is
the road.
amazing. Yeah,
But
I my phone
yeah,
notified me the other day. It was like, you spent 4.5 hours more on your phone while driving than average, and I'm like, perfect, paid for itself. I got 4 hours back, and so like literally now, if I have like today, I'm gonna go drive to pick my kid up for I get him from 3 to 7:30 or 3 to 8 or whatever, and it's a 25-minute drive to his house, and then a 25-minute drive. Depending on, he may have baseball today, so I may have to drop him off at baseball practice, and then I'll have a 25-minute drive back from that. So at least 25, if not 50 minutes today, I know that I'll be in my car. So rather than catching up on Instagram DMs when I could be doing other stuff at work, now I know, hey, for 25 minutes, I'll get to catch up on my Instagram while it takes me to my kid's house.
so getting back to networking, why is responding to those DMs important? What do you get out of that?
I have raised more money from people that I have interacted with over the years in Instagram than probably any other platform. And, like the perfect example is my buddy Dave, and I'll just leave it at first name, who has a super small Instagram that you would never know he's anyone. I can't even like search him but half the time because I can't remember what his damn name is because it's not his name. Um, he and I met, so I test piloted like a 6 week coaching, like one-on-one coaching course in 2019 when I was moving from Hawaii to San Diego. I had 6 people I ran it with. It ended up not being something that I really enjoyed, and it wouldn't have been worth. I prefer like the group thing. I don't like it was a pain in the ass to have 6 1-hour calls every Sunday, especially because at that time it was for free. It was a trial, so like I was like, dude, the amount I would have to charge to make this worth wanting to do is not worth like what I'm teaching. And anyway, so he was one of 6 people who volunteered for it because when I posted on Instagram, he'd been following me for like a year. We had chatted back and forth a little bit. He opted to join. He didn't need to be in there. He just wanted to get to know me. Like he had been following for a while, but he already owned like 5 houses. He was an active duty captain in the Marine Corps. Like he was doing fine. And then he became a major. He ended up moving to California around the same time I did. We got to know each other. We got to hang out a lot. Spent plenty of time in the hot tub smoking cigars. And like that dude has been a private lender now on 5, 6, maybe 6 or 7 deals that I've done. So I mean, he has lent over $500,000. It might be the same 100 washed, but over $500,000 to me on deals, and it all stemmed from like Instagram, and so like I'm really hesitant to hand off my Instagram yet because I enjoy personally
Mhm.
responding to people and being able, like, I have all my links memorized. So when someone asks a question, I can just drop a resource directly to them instead of like hoping my VA knows how to respond right. Um, and sometimes I'll do like a quick video or a quick audio message, and then people really seem like it is a much deeper connection on Instagram when I can like personally
Right.
respond via voice or video and it's me. And so it's hard for me to want to give that up because I'm like, I might have 20 messages to go through today when I get in the car, but at least 3 of those will be something valuable, or I'll get to introduce someone to
Yeah.
my sales team or whatever.
So I have a question for you, and this is like a time-saving tip for people. Do you have shortcuts on your phone so you can like just type a shortcut and then it fixes the link?
What I did was you can save 10 like templates that are always saved. And so I did that. And so they're for the things like my Facebook group, my
Okay.
whatever that I most commonly paste. So it's like having copy paste all the time. And then I saved my URL for my website. And every single article or affiliate I've ever done, I've made sure to name in the most convenient manner. So all I have to do is paste the link and then type in, like, if I'm sending you an affiliate for PropStream, it's my link slash PropStream. Or, like my Mastermind application is my link slash Mastermind application. So like I just know all of the links at this point because they're all so easy. So instead of having a million shortcuts, I just have the one hyperlink and then type the last word. And at this point, yeah, my phone knows, like if I hit my link and type M, it'll populate the rest of the application. So it's like
Yeah,
I could be like tap 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 send. And
that's the best. I set my autocorrect like so if I type CAL in space, it's
see?
my calendar link. If I type EML, it's in my email. And so
Smart.
like that, like I just set the autocorrect, and it's so nice because like before I was typing out my calendar link like one letter by letter, and sounds like it is such a first world problem, but like I send out my calendar link
Yeah.
30 times a week. So when you do that over and over and over, that stuff adds up over time, just like everything, like it compounds
Yeah, one
out.
of
I feel
my
like
10 saved prompts is the phrase, it says, can can you shoot an email to my assistant so she can get you on my calendar? And then it has her email. And so that's the first block. And so yeah, probably 10 times a week I'm like click, 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 and it
yeah,
just and then I'm like, it's totally off me. My assistant will take care of it. And then there's always the asshole who wants to like still try to schedule directly with you, and I have to like kindly let them know no.
I don't
Yeah, I
even
had
do
someone
my own
text me
schedule.
yesterday. He's like, "Yeah, I totally get it with the assistant, blah blah blah. Would you happen to have time tomorrow at this time?" And he tried to make it simple with like, "If this time works, you're good." And I was like, "No clue. I don't run my schedule." And like, now that I'm looking
Yeah,
at my calendar, I'm like, "Oh yeah, I probably could have said yes to that." But you know what? Doesn't matter because she will. So yeah,
right. So, we've gone through a little bit about how the Marine Corps has helped you get ready and prepared in real estate. We haven't really hit the real estate much, and we're not really like I'm not a real estate podcast, but I
yeah,
have a lot of real estate people on just 'cause that's who I know. Can you give us like a high level of what the real estate looks like and what activities you're doing to grow in the real estate? Because that is kind of like the whole underbelly of the
dude, like
community and
nothing.
everything.
It's crazy. Deals come to me now. Like I have this year in December, I bought 130 key hotel, not far from you, in Townsend, Tennessee.
Yep,
Yep,
with Blake.
and that deal
Blake,
came to
good
me.
guy.
I bought a duplex. That deal came to me, and I bought a 13 single family home package with a vacant lot, so like 14 pads. Um, and that deal came to me. And so like the 130, or we'll backtrack. So the 13 single families and a vacant lot. Friend called and was like, "I got a beat on this. It's a great deal. We need to raise 200K to take it down." And I was like, "Cool." So I only raised 100, and then we're just going to roll the renovations from the rest of them forward. And then I called my bank, got the lending secured, and so I backed the lending. I raised the 100K. I set up the LLC. He found the deal. He operates the deal. He's managing the renovations, and I own 35% of it. And I did nothing essentially, or I do nothing at this point. Like he does everything. And then the duplex, it was actually that same friend. It was a weird situation. His private lender needed out. And so he was like, "I'm about to list this, but if you want it, I'll just sell it to you at this price." And so I bought it for, mind you, this is like rural, small podunk town, Missouri pricing. And it's also less than what it appraised for. So I paid 85 grand for a duplex that's currently rented for 1250. And,
Dang.
but I got in for zero down because of some, I honestly, I probably shouldn't mention exactly how we did that, but suffice it to say, our bank worked with us, and yeah, we were able to do it legally, zero down, but in a way that I probably wouldn't recommend most people doing. So I'll save the exact how for people who hear this and then meet me in person and want the real story. And then the 130 key, that one's fucking cool, dude. Here, you want to talk community? You want to talk badass? My buddy Wes Thompson found this hotel off market, posted it he's in the War Room Mastermind, my mastermind, posted the link and was like, this looks really cool. I don't know shit about hotels, but I know someone in this community does. So I tag Blake. A whole bunch of other people tag Blake. Blake gets a hold of it. Blake goes to raise capital for it and buy it and whatever. Blake, honestly, he probably could have done it on his own, but he opted to bring some other people in to help raise capital, which is actually panned out to be really good because there were a lot of weird nuances taking that thing down, and hotel financing right now with banks is a nightmare. So it was a weird deal. So it's good that we had other people in. I raised $950 for that one. Plus, I brought in another person from the war room who raised another 200, and another person from the war room who raised 700. So like between the three of us, and most of my 950 is also war room members, we probably raised 2 to 2.5 million of the 4.4. And then I
Wow.
brought in another buddy, Kurt, who raised 1.5. So like 3.5 of the 4.4 was either people I brought or people in my community that knew both of us, which is just sick. So it's like the deal was found by someone in the group, taken down by someone in the group, operated by someone in the group, and mostly raised by people in the group. Like that's the coolest example. And what's funny is like there's so many deals going on in that community that I don't even know about. People are always lending to each other. I mean, it's like Action Academy. It's like everywhere you turn around, you're like,
Yep.
who's doing a deal with who? What? Everybody won. Everybody made money. I didn't even know that was happening.
It's
Yeah,
like, you're doing a deal?
yeah,
I
it's
didn't
super
even know
cool.
that. That's awesome. So one more thing I want to talk about before we get to the last question is the reason why I'm getting my real estate license
Oh
is you.
shit!
And so I want to talk a little bit about how your network and referrals works in making passive income through being a licensed real estate agent.
It's only passive because I have an assistant. Yeah, well,
Semi-passive.
it's passive for
Like,
me. Um,
yeah, if you do it the regular way,
yeah, it's
semi-passive.
still a
But for you,
super
it's like
super good opportunity. So I mean, the long short, right, is if you're a licensed real estate agent, you can legally get a commission for helping another licensed real estate agent work with a client. And, as a connector, that provides unique opportunities because whenever people are like, yo, I'm moving here and I'm interested in real estate, do you know anyone? You're like, yes, I do. And then you make an intro. Like for me, I only ask for 25%. You can ask usually anywhere from 25 to 35 is like industry standard. I'm to my own detriment. I'm not greedy. And so I ask for what the lowest standard amount is, but I also send probably more referrals than anybody else. Like we probably still, I honestly, I don't even know. Like we probably are sending on average 1.5 to 2 intros a day. I could dig into my CRM and find out for you, but this will be the first year in the last 5 that I don't net 6 figures on referrals, and it's just because the market's slowed down. People aren't buying or moving quite as often right now, as everyone knows. But we're probably still going to be around 50 or 60 this year, and then it'll pick back up. And yeah, it is. I mean, you can tell by the fact that I don't have any answers for you how passive it is for me. Like I might spend. Honestly, I need to go dig into it and like see how things are going and tweak things because I might spend 15 minutes a month on that program right now. And I could not tell you.
to make $60,000
Yeah, we
a
made.
year.
Let's see. Last month, I think we brought in 4,500, and I like it just hits the
Wow.
account, and I'm like, oh, cool. Or my assistant will be like, hey, I got another one hidden. I'm like, oh, cool.
That's amazing. So but yeah, that was the inspiration behind getting my license because I heard you talk about that. And my friend Justin also was like, Hayden, you should be a referral agent. And I'm actually joining his team with
Nice.
EXP.
If you want, I'll give you. I built a
But
course
yeah,
on referrals where I like showcased everything I do. I'll just give you access to it. I don't ever push it. Like I listed it at like whatever. I think I took my average referral payout and multiplied it by 1.5. It was like that's the price, and then I've never actually sold it. I take that back. One person refused to take free, and so I gave him $1,000 off, and he paid. But I've basically just like solely with lattes and leases. I gave her access to it. I'll give you access. I've given a few people access to it. The only thing outdated with it is I changed CRMs since then, but the system still works. So yeah, man.
that would be awesome. Yeah, I'm going to be diving into that. So, and then if anyone's interested in it, contact Dave and he'll sell it to you
Yeah, maybe.
because he likes to make
Or I'll
money.
give it to you.
There you go. Awesome. So the last question I want to ask you, Dave, is what is a person or group of people that you met or got introduced to that changed the trajectory of your business or life?
Okay, well, if you ask me that right now, I would totally cop out and be like, I met the War Room Mastermind, and it's changed my life but there's a couple mastermind groups that really set me on the course of liking community more than education. The first one that I was ever in, honestly, was when Bigger Pockets started doing their free ones. Kind of fell apart. And then I was in one for the book, not Raving Fans, but whatever it's called, Pat Flynn's book on followers. And then I was in one with David Green, and then I joined GoBundance. And right around when I joined GoBundance from David Green's was when I realized, like, I could do this. Why don't I have one of these for service members? And so I built my own, the War Room. So for anyone who doesn't know, we're a mastermind group that helps service members and vets achieve financial freedom. We are only open to service members and vets. It's what makes us unique and I think more powerful. And then I would say probably the closest thing to our community right now is like Brian, like Action Academy and the War Room are probably, I mean, he does some things better. I'd say I do some things better. We're fairly comparable. We swap ideas and stuff. Just totally different demographics. And although there are some members in both. But to answer your question the right way, Brandon Turner. Like, I met him in Hawaii. He's who convinced me to host a local meetup. He's who convinced me to start the brand or the blog. Nothing I do right now online would exist if I'd not gotten to meet him.
That's amazing. I just told my friend Jeff, who's mutual friends with Brandon, I was
Jeff
like, I want to
Aher?
meet the guy. So next time you're in Hawaii, let
What's
me know.
Jeff?
Huh?
Okay.
Jeff Holtz. Yeah, he's in his the big expensive one that Brandon
What's
does,
the
where they
50?
fly around on the jet. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, he's in that
Brandon
one.
is one of the he is a rare, like, you don't leave an interaction with him without a good idea or a good experience. Like, he's a phenomenal human.
Yeah. I think I'm going to fly to Maui once I get my Amex points, because he put on his podcast where I think your podcast I listened to. He's like where he goes to the gym and everything. So I may just show up.
Let me know before you do
that's
that.
what
I'll
I
just
do.
text an intro.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, cool. Well, Dave, so we're coming up on our time. You got another podcast to get to. Where can people find you, and where can they ask questions about all your things?
They should go to thebestpodcastguest.com, where you can download a free copy of my book and find all my social medias.
That is such a great webinar. That's awesome.
URL.
Website.
Yeah, it's amazing.
That's awesome. URL. Yeah, whatever it's called. Awesome, Dave. Well, thank you so much for coming on. You've been listening to the Art of Connecting podcast. Again, I'm your host, Hayden Fike. And if you don't follow us already on Instagram, go check us out. My Instagram's at Hayden Connects, HAYDYNN. Make sure you spell it right. And we'll catch you guys on the next episode.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.